let's jump in. How many people know what the heart does? Like the literal, ba-dum. Anybody know what the heart does? Any doctors here? I'm kidding, I don't need a doctor's explanation. That would be too in-depth. If we get to the heart beats, right? That's what the heart does. The heart beats, but what is and I would go so far to say that the heart beating is essential to life, right? Like the actual heart beating, doing its thing, that is essential to life. The function of the heart, it beats, but it beats for a reason, because it's actually like pumping, beating. We say beat because it makes a little more sense to us, but it's actually pumping. And what is it pumping? Anybody know? Blood, right. So it's pumping blood, which blood then gets nutrients and oxygen to every other part of the body, right? So we could say that the heart is essential, but then we would also say if the heart was beating, but there was no blood movement or no blood for it to move, then the heart would be just pretty much pointless, right? Like the heart could beat, but no life would happen if there was no blood to then flow from it, to flow into our body. There's no oxygen being moved through that blood. The two of those things, we could go on into lungs and all those kind of things that we could say, now this piece here is also essential to life. But I thought it was one of the easiest things for us to wrap our minds around, that most people say, this heart piece is so essential to what we're doing. But if it stands all by itself, independent of the things that it comes in contact with, independent of what it functions for, then ultimately it's just useless. The thing that it exists in is dead if there's nothing for the heart to pump. There's a connection. It makes me ask the question, what is essential for life? What is essential for life? Today we begin a journey in the Bible, and it begins with a man by the name of James. Now, if you were here at the beginning of the year, we started this series, which is going to pop up over the next 18 months or so, where we're working through the entire book of James. And so we're now in the second chapter of James. And James is a pretty special person in terms of the Bible. He's special in that he was a brother of Jesus, a half-brother of Jesus. And James, if you're not familiar with who he specifically is, brother of Jesus, he was the leader of the church in Jerusalem. All these things. He actually wrote this little book we're going to be hanging out in today and the next couple of weeks. But here's the thing. Some of you might remember when I told this earlier, James didn't always believe in Jesus. In fact, almost the entirety of Jesus' life, the entirety of Jesus' life, James looked at Jesus like a fraud, like a fake. That he was making this up the entire time. When Jesus made claims that I'm the Son of God, when Jesus made claims that I will die and resurrect, when Jesus made claims that he was this great teacher, James was just like, Jesus, no. You're just like my big brother, and maybe you like a lot of attention because you're the firstborn or something like that, but there's nothing special about you. You know what I'm saying? Never mind, I was going to say something inappropriate. But that's what he's thinking about his big brother. He's like, no. But the resurrection changes the opinion of James because he comes face to face then with his brother. He has an encounter with him. He believes in the resurrection so much so he changes his tune from my brother's an idiot and a crazy and just he ought to be locked up in a mental institution somewhere forever to I'm going to lead one of the largest churches in the entire world and the epicenter of Christianity in Jerusalem. Not only that, James ends up losing his life for what he believes. And so James writes this very interesting question that I think we have to wrestle with this morning. For some of you, you've been wrestling with this question for a long time. But there are others of you that will hear this question for the very first time today. And so I want to give you a little bit of encouragement. There are people in the room that have been sitting here that maybe have had a relationship with Jesus for decades, and it's still a question that they wrestle with in their faith and their relationship with Jesus. And so if you come out of here today without this resolute understanding of what we're going to talk about, that's okay. Because honestly, there's probably not many people on the planet that can say, you know what, I can fundamentally give this description that's super crystal clear of exactly how this works, right? There's a little bit, it's kind of like the heart and the blood thing. What is truly essential for life? Here's the question. James chapter 2, verse 14. It says this, What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? So first, I think we have to define deeds, right? We have to define deeds a little bit. And you could define this very simply as behavior, actions, individual actions, multiple actions that kind of sum up who you are in your life week to week, all of those things. Basically following Jesus, the way that you live your life, the day in and day out, those decisions that manifest themselves in your hands and your feet, in the mouth, and the way you talk to people, interact with them, all those things, right? All of those things would be considered deeds or actions. That's what he's saying. So what good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith, and to kind of paraphrase, but their life actually doesn't show any evidence of the faith? Right? The way that they follow Jesus doesn't match up with what they say, what their claims are. Clearly, because James is writing this, it's a thing to claim to have faith, yet not have a life that resembles following Jesus. Clearly, someone is struggling with it. For him to bring it to their attention, someone is having difficulty with the idea of saying one thing and living something else. He follows up that he takes it just a step further. He asks the question, and then he asks a second question that really raises the stakes in terms of how important this question is. We continue in verse 14. It says this. Verse 14 says, "Can such a faith save them?" You see, at the beginning, the first question, it's not that intrusive. It's just a simple question. What good is it? What good is it if someone claims to have faith but has no deed? What's the good there? But just in case people weren't picking up what he was putting down, he says, let me raise the stakes a little bit. Can such a faith save them? Now, that's a big deal. We're talking high stakes. We're talking salvation. We're talking about eternity. We're talking about the difference in heaven and hell. Those two things, those two very real places. All of a sudden, this idea of faith and what is essential for life forever, that is what's being brought into question. Things just got serious. James then goes on to give an example. James wants to bring clarity to his argument. James wants to bring clarity to his audience so that they understand the importance of what's happening. And so he says this in verse 15. He says, "Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, keep warm and well fed,' but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead." So he gives this situation. Let's say you have a brother or sister, right? Not like immediate family brother or sister, but a family in your faith, in your community, right? A community of faith. You have a brother or sister that's without clothes or food to eat, right? So they're walking around in scraps or naked, and they got nothing to eat. Like they're just, I don't know, fill in the blank what nothing to eat means. They don't have anything to put in their mouth, right? There's no sustenance, there's no food. And your response to them is, well, go in peace, keep warm, and well fed. He's saying, what good is it? Same question. What good is the faith at the beginning who claims one thing but doesn't have any deeds to back it up? He uses the same question then to frame his example. Here's my example. Person to have anything to wear, to have anything to eat. And your response to them is, well, go in peace, stay warm, and stay well fed. Here's the thing. If we were to re-summarize what he's trying to say, it's this. Religious talk filled with optimism when not accompanied by action is dead. Religious talk filled with optimism when not accompanied by action is dead. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? It's the bless your heart moments. You know what I'm saying? Right? I ain't talking about like, oh, bless your heart, honey. Come on in. Let's do something about this, right? No, it's the I see it happening. I'm there. I'm a follower of Jesus. And the only thing I've got is, bless their heart. Well, when are we playing bunco, When y'all coming over for cards? Have you seen the newest TV show? I just hate it for them. Bless their heart. I just hate that for them. Well, what's for dinner? That's what he's attempting to say. That you have someone in your faith community, that you have someone that's there, there's an obvious need that they understand and that you can see, that you are aware of. You're put in a position to notice it, to see it, possibly even to act on it. And the way that you act is you decide just to simply say it with your mouth instead of do anything about it with your hands, your feet. Now notice it doesn't say that, hey, you have to solve their entire world's problems. Notice it doesn't say that you have to solve this problem for them forever. The one thing he's talking about is your initial reaction to what happens when you see the need in front of you. How do you respond? Is it simply with words, or do you do something about it? I would say it this way: following Jesus is quick and easy if you only have to run your mouth about it. Following Jesus is quick and easy if you only have to run your mouth about it. I find that me running my mouth is probably the easiest thing I have for me going, you know? Man, I tell you, I had an example. Friday night, we were at the ball field. I'm the coach of the 8 and under Brewers, by the way. Come on. We haven't won a game this year, all right? Me and the umpire had some words. And then me and the other coach also had some words. My words with the other coach ended with sweet dreams, right? Right, I know. It didn't go well. Right? It did not go well. I didn't get thrown out of the game, praise the Lord, you know what I'm saying? But I was close, you know? My mouth will get me into trouble. I've told y'all plenty of times. There are so many places in my life that I struggle to follow Jesus. There are so many places in my life where I recognize, and in the moments, you know, where I don't always make the greatest decision. You know what stopped me from just continuing to yap? As I was looking at the umpire, my eyes went past him, and I saw one of our church people standing back here behind the thing. His name's Tim Lewis. I saw Tim, and I was like, dang. I find it easy to run my mouth. Maybe I'm not the only one. Run your mouth about the good things about Jesus. Letting those words fly out with this eternal religious optimism, with words like peace and grace and mercy, with ideas of charity and goodwill and social justice. Words are incredible. They can move someone to an emotional response. Sometimes they can rally the troops together to charge ahead. It's the action. It's the action behind it. And James reinforces this idea that he's trying to hammer home to his audience, which includes us today. He says this in verse 19. He says, you believe that there is one God. Good! Even the demons believe that and shudder. You see, there was this common belief among his audience. For the Jewish folks, they have this thing called the Shema. In fact, it's something they recite even to this day. Morning and evening prayer services, it's a big part of what those are for the Jewish folks. It says this, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And so what James is attempting to tell them, he's saying, hey, for all of you who are good, religious Jewish folks who are now Christians, and you still are part of this prayer service, and you stand up every morning and the evening, and you say, hear, O Lord our God is one. He said, just because you say that, just because you're saying it with your lips, just because you're going through this religious ceremony, these religious rituals, just because you say that out loud and you declare it and you pray it over your children, you pray it over your household, just because you say the words, the demons have said the words as well. So you really haven't made much progress When we look in the book of Mark and in the book of Luke, there's this instance where Jesus comes face to face with this guy that's possessed by demons, and he has conversations with the demons. And the demons respond. They're like, "What are you doing here, Jesus?" And they actually admit, they say, "You are the Holy One of God." What a confession from a demonic spirit. Audibly, out loud, where everyone else can hear it. "Jesus, what are you doing here? What have you come to do? Why did you come for us? You're the Holy One of God." It doesn't get you anywhere to simply believe that Jesus is who he says he is. The demons believe that. Our enemy, Satan, he believes that Jesus is the Son of God. Satan is fully aware that he died on the cross. He's incredibly aware that he resurrected from the dead. So understanding that intellectual understanding of those events, at the end of the day, it's a heart pumping without blood. It's just a heart pumping without any blood. That's what James is trying to say. You see, there must be two different kinds of faith, two different kinds of belief. Because he says that the one that he's describing, he uses the word a couple of times, dead. That there is such a thing as having a faith and it being dead. And so we understand that if there's a dead type of faith, then there also must be an alive type of faith. And we also come to the understanding that the difference between the two is not who Jesus is. That understanding is not the difference between death and life. Both of them are hearts beating. One of them has blood to push. There must be a difference. You see, I would say to you today, without a doubt, 100%, the struggle for the true definition of faith will be ongoing. It's not something that we are going to solve in this moment. All we can take is the insight that the Bible gives us and understand that the demons have a faith described as dead. Yet we understand that there is a faith that gives us an eternal life that will be described as alive. And the brother of Jesus, the leader of the church in Jerusalem, who gave his life for his belief that he didn't have for almost his entire life, but came in contact with the resurrected Jesus, who changed his mind about who Jesus was, and then started to give his life to him, he gives us this insight that says the heart's got to pump something. Beating on its own is useless. The heart's got to pump something. I would say to you this: faith resides in your hands and your feet as much as it does in your heart. When I'm looking at the book of James, when I'm looking at his words, that's what I would come to the conclusion of. Faith resides in your hands and your feet as much as it does in your heart. There's two kinds of faith. Only one of them can save you. One is incredibly passive and intellectually based. And then the saving faith is very active, incredibly active. And that's the difference. One of them has meat on the bones, and the other one is simply lip service. It's positive thoughts and positive sayings and bless your hearts. But it's just a heart pumping with nothing to send to anywhere else. Faith resides in your hands and feet as much as it does in your heart. I have this memory. Maybe you have the same memory. Harrison Ford. We call him Indiana Jones, right? Anybody know where I'm going with this? Maybe? Okay, cool. Maybe not. Indiana Jones, Last Crusade, he's going to get the Holy Grail, right? The cup that Jesus had used. His dad, Sean Connery, is like on the floor about to die. Sean Connery, I can't do that. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Anyone got a good Sean Connery? Oh, that wasn't very good. It was fine. Sorry. And he comes up to this huge chasm, right? He's on one side, and the cup is on the other, and it's just blank. He's got this little notebook, though. He's got this book. He's holding it in his hands, and he opens the book, and the book says, "Take a leap of faith." So then he has to choose. Do I trust what's in the book? Or do I trust what I can see? Here's the thing. Indiana Jones could have made the assessment, you know what, I 100% believe that if I step off of here, there's going to be something there to stop me. There's going to be this bridge, right? I believe it in my heart. I know for a fact it's there. But I'm just going to sit right here. And when someone else comes, they're going to say, hey, what are you doing? I'm just looking at the invisible bridge that I'm 100% sure it's there. I believe it's there, without a doubt. And I would imagine they would say, well, then why don't you walk across it? This idea of faith. Do you have any areas in your life where you need to put some action to it? Where you've said to yourself, you know what, I know I've already made the decision that this is real, this is what God wants me to do, but I can't take the step. I can't put action to my positive words. I can't move in that direction. Let me ask you this question. Do you have to agree with God to follow him? Do you have to agree with God to follow him? You see, I think some of you are sitting in the room and thinking, well, Clint, I don't have one of those cliff diver moments, right? Where I'm just like, you know what, I know God's going to catch me, and I just run and start, and here we go, and I'm sure he'll catch me. I don't have anything like that in my life. I don't know if that's you, and most likely, if it's you, you're someone who's believed in Jesus for a long time. So I ask that question, do you have to agree with God to follow him? I would say to you, this is faith. Having an understanding that God desires your life to be a certain way. Where I understand God wants me to live a certain way. God has a desire for me to inhabit my world in a particular way. To interact with umpires in a particular way. Yet I disagree with him. The faith becomes, do I do what he asks anyway? Even though I don't agree. You see, faith is not about agreement. It's about obedience. There's a huge difference between there. Moms, you know what I'm talking about. You don't have to have your children agree with you that what you've asked them to do is the best thing for them. You just need them to do it. Why? Because you know that once they've done it, further on down the line, and you've built these habits in the way that they live, they will come to the place where they say, you know what? Maybe mama really does know best. And so you're not looking for their agreement. You're looking for their obedience. So let me ask the question this morning. How many of you are struggling with something that God says, hey, I want it this way in your life? and you're saying, I just disagree with you, God. Can I be God's mouthpiece for just a moment? Because I think he wants to tell you, I don't need for you to agree with me. I don't. I just need you to follow me. And that will require faith. That will require faith. A surrender of what you have and what you think is best. To say, I'll do it. Because I have faith in you. That you'll stop with the idea of, let me put some good language around it. Let me make it more palatable to my spirit and my soul. That you'll just surrender. That you'll take that leap of faith. If you were looking for an opportunity to do something this morning, I would say for most of us, that's the thing we should do. Most likely we will not walk out of here and all of us find someone who is naked and hungry. That's most likely not happening to everyone in here. Maybe one or two of you. Depends on where you go. But most likely that's not going to happen. For those of you who find the naked and hungry person, you'll probably think, oh no, it's a sign. You know? Honey, take your shirt off and give it to him. You know what I'm saying? But for the vast majority of us, the place where we need to put some action, more than just lip service, is in that place where we disagree with God about how our life works and functions and exists. And it's time for us to get past this idea that we have to agree to be obedient. That